Hello, and a very warm welcome to the English Story Nook. We are so glad you have chosen to join us today. Today, we're diving into a story about a very successful woman who gets the promotion of her dreams, but discovers that professional achievements don't always lead to happiness. Get ready to discover what happens when she starts listening to the silence in her life and rediscovers a long-forgotten passion. Before we dive in, if you enjoy our stories and want to support what we do, please give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and consider buying us a coffee on Ko-fi. There's a link in the description below. Every like, subscription, and small contribution helps us keep creating great content for English learners like you. Let's get started. My promotion came with silence. Ella Silva, at 38, was the architect of her own success. For 15 years, she had meticulously laid each brick of her career at Eldalonde Solutions, a tech firm that demanded everything and promised the same. Her life was a testament to her ambition, a sleek, modern structure built on sacrificed weekends and forgotten hobbies. It was a world away from the colorful, chaotic life of her younger sister, Andrea, a painter who measured success in canvases filled, not contracts signed. Their last conversation, a tense debate about their different paths, had left a strange residue in Ella's heart, a mix of pride and a quiet, unsettling doubt. She had dismissed it then, attributing it to Andrea's artistic temperament. But the feeling lingered, a ghost in her perfectly organized life. Then the promotion arrived, Senior Vice President. The words, once the peak of her aspirations, now felt strangely hollow. The congratulations, the emails, the celebratory lunch. It was all a performance, a play in which she was the lead actress, smiling and nodding while a profound silence grew within her. That evening, in her minimalist apartment, the silence was no longer a quiet hum in the background, but a roaring emptiness. She scrolled through her social media, a curated gallery of her achievements, but the images felt like they belonged to a stranger. The woman in the photos, shaking hands with executives and accepting awards, was not the woman sitting alone in the dark, the weight of her success pressing down on her. The silence was a mirror, reflecting a life that was full of everything but joy. The first few weeks in her new role were a whirlwind of meetings and strategic plans. Ella was, as always, exceptional. She navigated the corporate landscape with the ease of a seasoned explorer, her competence a shield against the growing emptiness. But the work, once a thrilling challenge, now felt like a cage, gilded and spacious, but a cage nonetheless. The long hours, once a badge of honor, were now a constant reminder of the life she was missing. The silence in her apartment grew louder, a constant companion in her lonely evenings. It was a silence that mocked her achievements, a silence that whispered of a life unlived. She began to feel a sense of alienation, a disconnect from the person she had worked so hard to become. This feeling of alienation was a new and unwelcome guest in her carefully constructed world. One evening, desperate to escape the suffocating silence, Ella found herself in a small art gallery. She was drawn to a painting, a chaotic explosion of color and emotion that seemed to mirror the turmoil in her own soul. The artist, she learned, was a former lawyer who had traded his briefcase for a paintbrush. The story. A simple tale of a man who chose passion over prestige resonated with Ella in a way she couldn't explain. It was a story that challenged her own definition of success, a story that planted a seed of doubt in the fertile ground of her discontent. The feeling of alienation she had been experiencing seemed to lessen in the presence of such raw, honest creativity. The seed of doubt began to sprout. While decluttering her apartment, a task she usually found therapeutic, Ella stumbled upon a box of old art supplies. The sight of the dried-up paints and dusty brushes was a punch to the gut, a reminder of a forgotten dream. She remembered the girl who had spent hours lost in a world of color and light, the girl who had dreamed of being a painter. The memory was a painful one, a ghost of a life she had abandoned in her relentless pursuit of success. She felt a pang of regret, a deep and abiding sorrow for the person she might have been. It was a moment of epiphany, a sudden and profound realization that she had been chasing the wrong dream. This epiphany was both terrifying and liberating, a crack in the foundation of her carefully constructed life. The weight of this epiphany was too much to bear alone. She called Andrea, her voice thick with unshed tears. Andrea, with her artist's intuition, understood what Ella couldn't articulate. She didn't offer easy answers or platitudes. Instead, she spoke of her own struggles, her own doubts, her own journey to a life that was messy and uncertain, but also deeply fulfilling. "You need to find your own song to sing, Ella," she had said, her voice a gentle melody in the cacophony of Ella's confusion. "It's not about the title on your business card, it's about the music in your soul." The conversation was a lifeline, a glimmer of hope in the darkness of her discontent. It was a reminder that it was never too late to change the tune. The epiphany had opened a door, and Andrea was showing her the way through. The boardroom was cold, the air thick with the scent of ambition and stale coffee. Ella was delivering a flawless presentation, her voice confident and clear, but her mind was a million miles away. She looked at the faces around the table, a gallery of tired eyes and forced smiles, and saw her future. It was a future of quiet desperation, a life of muted colors and silent screams. In that moment, the gilded cage of her success became a prison. She feigned a sudden illness, her apology a masterpiece of corporate theater, and fled. The city streets were a blur of glass and steel, a monument to the life she was desperate to escape. She found herself back at the art gallery, the chaotic painting a beacon in the storm of her emotions. Staring at its vibrant colors, she made a decision. She took out her phone and, with a trembling hand, deleted her corporate social media accounts, a digital exorcism of her old life. Then, she called her boss, and with a voice that was surprisingly steady, resigned. The silence that followed was not empty, but full of possibility. She walked out of the gallery and into a small art supply store, the smell of paint and turpentine a welcome assault on her senses. She bought a new set of paints and a canvas, a tangible symbol of her new beginning. The feeling of serendipity, of finding something wonderful without looking for it, washed over her. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated serendipity, a happy accident that would change the course of her life. This feeling of serendipity was a confirmation that she was on the right path. Back in her apartment, the silence was different. It was no longer a void but a canvas, waiting to be filled. The first brushstroke was hesitant, a tentative step into a new world. But then, as the colors began to dance on the canvas, a sense of joy, pure and unadulterated, washed over her. She painted for hours, lost in a world of her own creation, the silence now a gentle hum of creativity. She called Andrea, her voice alive with an excitement that had been dormant for years. They talked for hours, their laughter bridging the distance that had grown between them. She reconnected with old friends, the ones she had neglected in her relentless pursuit of success. She found a community of artists, a tribe of kindred spirits who valued passion over profit. Her art became her life, her online gallery a window into her soul. The response was slow, but it was real, a quiet validation of her newfound purpose. She supplemented her income with freelance consulting, using her business acumen on her own terms. Months later, Ella was a different woman. The sharp edges of her corporate persona had softened, replaced by a quiet confidence and a genuine smile. Her apartment, once a sterile showcase of success, was now a vibrant, chaotic studio, a testament to her creative spirit. She had less money, less prestige, but she had something far more valuable, a life that was her own. The silence was no longer a source of dread, but a space for creation, a quiet symphony of a life lived with purpose and passion. It was a silence that was full of music, the music of her own soul. That's the end of our story for today. It's a wonderful reminder that it's never too late to follow your heart. What is something you are passionate about? We would be delighted to read your answers in the comments. And don't forget to check the description below for helpful materials to practice what you've learned. Thank you for spending your time with us at the English Story Nook. Keep practicing your English and discovering new things. We can't wait to see you in the next story. Happy learning and goodbye.